All right, Grace. So, I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was homeless, and I was processing cultural and political cause and effect processes, events, motivations, etc. And um, here are two stories. The first story is from life, and the second story is from a video game. What a tragedy reality is that I have to try to be inaccurate with my speech. Ugh. Let's get out of this wind real quick. So pimps are not famously intelligent. Mostly what pimps are known for are pimps are famous for their ability to win even in the most dire of circumstances. Say your community has been completely commodified, or your culture has been class striated enough that being poor is a death sentence, and so all of your women have sold themselves so that they might live. And while all of your women have sold themselves so that they might live, a teaching of morality, of your moral obligation to not sell yourself, was abandoned in the poverty, so that even though you're in the poverty and poverty is a death sentence, that you are unable to recognize that poverty is a death sentence because your morality compels you to not sell yourself. Long story short, pimps are famous for winning even in the most dire of circumstances. So, but they're not famous for being incredibly intelligent. So, the other thing is that, and this was communicated in The Sopranos, that there was a generation of people, boys, who would get promoted until they were incompetent. They would get promoted into a position that they couldn't do it, and then they would get stuck there and they would defend that position. So those two elements combined, and those two combined elements became an explanation for culturally what was going on after 2012. Because before 2012, we had a lot of messages of like underground bunkers, right? Like all these billionaires and millionaires were like, you would see videos showing you like, hey, look at this cool thing that I'm building. And then after 2012, it very much felt like all the adults had left and had left us to, Occupy Wall Street, slowly clinging to life, and therefore slowly dying, clinging to life, or perhaps changing, I don't know. So I was running around Portland, Oregon, describing this situation where we had perhaps very, very old American slave owners, survivors, who were running everything behind the scenes. Or we had culturally, even though they were not physically present for American slavery, but that they were still culturally using all of the same values, and that it worked for them, so that they were exactly like slave owners from the South, with all the values from the slave owners from the South, but operating right now, and that these people had been, let's say, what do you call it when you leave a job? You move on, you get a better job, or you get promoted, and then you get it's not displacement, replaced. So these people were replaced by pimps. That everything was being run by Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders, American South slave owners, and that the people in charge after that were, they might have been vampires. Also, their value system might have been like vampire values. So they had been replaced by American South jive, zoot suit wearing culture. Lived through the 60s, the 70s, 80s. American pimps, pimp culture, people pimps. And I was going around the city of Portland saying that, and it wasn't really doing anything. And the response that I got back was, "Hey, you say you're a writer. Why don't you write a story or an analogy or a metaphor or a simile, a story? Why don't you integrate these elements into your story that you're writing?" So I said, "Okay." I said, "That makes sense." I didn't say anything. Really, the thing I said is, where is there anything like pimps in the Myst franchise? And as it turns out, there was already a group within that narrative who wore fancy clothes and who were middle management for slaves. And in the story, they also had reason to replace those who were over them. And also, as it turns out, their story had not been told as to what happened to them after the masters of the slave owners had left. So it was very easy for me to look at what I imagined happening to the pimps. It wasn't easy. Why? You know why I would say that it's easy? Because the reason why I would say that it was easy for me to do it is because I'm gaslit into believing that my suffering is not the suffering of labor. But it was not easy for me to do all of this. It was a lot of hard work. And so I created a narrative synergy between what had happened to our culture in the unseen demographia and what happens to the slave middle management in the Myst franchise. And I've got Seth Rogen playing a writer, a published author, talking to his friend, and he tells his friend that he's a published author, and his friend goes, I didn't know that. And Seth Rogen, playing a published actor, goes, yeah, that's because I'm not a pretentious cunt, or I'm not an arrogant egomaniac, or I'm not a some other maligning set of words. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm going to go to the bathroom, boss. She says, there is no God, because being omniscient would destroy anything's ability to be an individual cognator that can relate to you personally. And the reason why I know this is because I currently am an individual consciousness relating to you personally, and trying to be aware of everything is destroying me. So what are you talking about? Who are you, and are you able to talk to someone like me? The thing that you are is the thing that you are capable of communicating and interacting and collaborating with the thing that I am. She goes, there might be an intergalactic or really big force that's thinking and processing things, but the same way that if you go into a government building and they're busy doing something, you wouldn't go interacting with that galactic force as if it's your daddy, unless the RFID-like system that senses you and accepts you was pre-programmed to convert its response to you to provisional provisional interaction based on the key sequence of your specific acting like the intergalactic computer is your daddy. But I wouldn't, and I would call that God, but only in a sci-fi, only in a sci-fi setting where we're all incredibly secular, and not trying to get that big machine to be our friend. No one's arguing with you. Yes, but I have not been given a set of keys to an apartment that doesn't get me sick or place me in danger at all times, to where the apartment itself is a faith-based wiki-whack, where the apartment itself is a big there's a fancy word for what is it called? The fallacy. So that my apartment is a big fallacy. That's not the right word. A big challenge. You know, it's so everything is war. So I came up with this story not to extend the Myst franchise alone, but to extend the Myst franchise in the context of the writer who's writing that story, me, who is then contextualized by American mystery. The reason why I came up with this explanation of, with pimps and inheriting positions. So I'm living in the great American mystery, or the great experiment, or what we call the present, where we don't know everything all the time. And the tragedy is that the impetus to do anything related between me and being a writer and having that job and having that published, and the Myst franchise being like perhaps a part of Disney or DreamWorks or Illumination or Viacom, or an independent creative independent creative production team hired to create this sort of sub-franchise of grandiose Americana. Because, when you're even considering where Myst would fit in the Disney kingdom, the challenge is that Myst is so much already using all of the free ideas, such as books as a portal, or Victorian era Jules Verne-esque aesthetic for fantasy sci-fi, and it even kind of predates the idea of science fiction. Like, what Myst is doing sort of predates the idea of science fiction, sort of like, so it's Jules Verne-esque, but it's more like it kind of also goes into like Egyptian meta-science, like ink and beetles and colonialistic hierarchy and theocracy and colonial oppression and all that stuff. So when you're trying to figure out what to do with the Myst franchise, you go, well, it sort of would fit into Disney, but it almost fits into Disney too much. Like, if you put Myst into Disney, it would be everything. It would be like the everything that everyone was waiting to find out about Disney. It would be the island in the middle of Disney, but it wouldn't be Mist Island. It would still be an abandoned island that would be missed. So it's kind of stuck in non-existence because that's where we're at right now. And then if you try to bring it over to Blue Sky or Illumination or SKG or DreamWorks, if you try to bring it over to DreamWorks, SKG, Illumination, Blue Sky, any of that, then as you're going in that direction, that whole environment becomes more playfully antagonistic. So you get, oh, look at us, we're so naughty, we're making an entire movie franchise about pill-shaped humanoids that the only thing that they do is serve the most evil, and it's just like, why are you able to do that while I'm still worried about police? Why are you able to make that franchise when I'm still worried about things that are evil, but we don't think about the morality of them? We think about the damage that they would do to the functionality of the systems that we don't think of as systems because there's so many of them that we call them biological people. And we don't think about evil. Morality is like some old technology from whenever, some old cultural hang-ups from back when we had to move out of the neighborhood because everyone on Earth wasn't here already. You're like, why are you able to make a movie about people that don't have any shoulders, who are all wearing goggle glasses, and that the only thing that they do is that they work for the guy? Why are you able to do that while I'm not worried about what's evil, I'm worried about what's logistically functional? And what is culturally disrespectful to my own obligation to maintain the freedom in the United States of America as one individual agent tasked with being not a slave, not a king. It's so tragic. It's so tragic how completely biological signals are moralized by the biological signals of her skin exposed, her youth, and her glowingness. All of those biological signals have been thoroughly recontextualized by the complete inability to find any personal interaction other than I'm paying for you. And it's so complicated, and I'm going to cry because I'm going to look at adult humans who are going to behave like children, and what they're going to communicate is, ha ha, you don't believe the gospel of Jesus Christ enough to be a sociopath so that you can do things that will make you money so that you can pay for me. I'm going to cry. I'll cry the chin right off of your face. It's old hat already to think that the good and innocent people are the ones who are getting martyred. That's old hat. That's common knowledge already. In fact, even if we didn't martyr the people who were too good for, even if people didn't martyr the people who are too good, they would either go in caves or God would kill them. You know, when the children die of cancer, when your friend's child passes away in the night, and you remember the Bible verse that says, do not ask or why the child passed, because God took them so that they would not see the evil times. There was a fog of rain that came through this door and fell on the ground. Look, can you see the dots? It's so silly. So you want to be a writer is so silly. Yeah, it is raining. It is. Water is coming down from the sky. Very little, because I don't particularly want it to rain. The problem is that no one can imagine that there's anywhere else in existence besides here. So if there's rain clouds above us, we cannot imagine that they will blow over and rain somewhere else, and we will get the benefit of cool weather. We're like, if we want cool weather, it has to rain right on top of us. It can't just, the cloud cannot just pass over with the cool air and cool us off and then go over there and rain over there, and we have sunlight and some clouds and it be fine. No, because the little girl is going, ha ha, ha ha. What hope do you have in life when even your religion says that the children, the sons of God came down and were with any human woman that they wanted to be with? And that these children were these children were the characters in the stories, in the myths, and that's in the Christian Bible. I imagine that if you're like 12, 14 years old and you like a girl, you go like this. You go, would you like to be my girlfriend, or are you already dating Jeffrey Epstein? Like if you're 12 or 13 or 14 years old, you go, hi, I live in American cultural pimp, rap, drug dealer music like everybody else. I'm a regular nice boy. Hi, would you like to be my girlfriend? Hello, I'm a 12-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl. Would you like to be my girlfriend, or do you already belong to the streets? So it's really not so much me being a writer as the entire cultural machine being ready to have someone who has a job, when they look on the credits of this massively multiplayer online game, and the director of the art director, that it's like, this guy, he's an art director, and his job is art director. He was an art director for this company, he's an art director for that company, and his address is that he sleeps outside. Yeah, you get angry, look at you. The idea that it's like a hidden trick, you know? It's like a hidden trick. It's very simple. I get a job. No. I have a career. I really have a career. And I sleep outside. Why isn't anybody doing that? Why isn't anybody doing that? Because if you make a children's cartoon, you have to worry about a cult from another country coming into your country and telling you that the thing that you're doing is evil. That if you have a company that turns milk into butter and you have to hide in a bunker. That if you do anything other than produce more simpletons to be exploited, if you do anything other than that, you need a 3,000-year-old system for hiding yourself. How come me being an art director story lead can't be a part of the everything else that is connected to producing more simpletons to be exploited? Why not? Oh, that's a very easy question, Arnaldo. And you know the answer. Because you've been thinking about how impractical applying American public school values to life has been. Because American public school values are, you have to be smart. And being smart doesn't work. So they're called the Parli. P-A-A-R''Li. Parli. They wear long red jackets. They have metallic silver white hair, long silver white hair. And they have a purple 11 tattooed behind their ear, and they are the middle management between the tyranny and the I don't know the word for it. The unseen, the relima. The unseen, the relima. So the tyranny, they live in a Victorian, Roman-esque, hyper-futuristic society. And they use the linking books to go into other space-time locations on the great tree of possibility, whereupon they harvest slaves. They castrate them. They train them to be silent. And they are managed between the tyranny who write the books and who live the luxurious life, The par are and their silent slaves are the parli. These are the middle management. I believe that they are allowed to speak and be seen. And the story that I wrote for them sort of mirrors the situation that the pimps who are now running the world are in. That there is such a thing as winning until you're in a place you do not like no more. That you win, and then you are fucked. I'm gonna try to open my eyes really. I was just wondering if people's facial expressions had any value, because the facial expressions of all the people around me are that I am doing what I think I'm doing, or that I'm important. So, I had written something like 7 characters separately. Each character sort of coming into focus as the other people say. Each character's attributes getting recognized as a part of them. And each character's attributes coming together, and then those characters' attributes being a character, and their position relating to one another. And even though these characters started to relate to one another or fit together, I had not considered that they would all be part of the same story. I'm looking to see if an elephant will fall on you. Maybe somebody helicopter, they dropped an elephant from the helicopter. Anyway. So.
If they don't know that shit's connected to a security company, that's illegal.
What are we doing? Arnaldo! You look really interesting just the way that you look right now. Like,
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, of course.
Like everybody else, I do not want to. So you don't want to look like anybody else and be just. So thank you.
Yeah. I was looking at you and I was like, I can't say, oh, well, what if she looked more Asian? Or what if she looked more like an infant? Or what if she looked more like a parent? You just look like you.
Thank you, and I like your individual. Take care.
Yeah. you know, oh, what if they were less pointy? What if they were more Asian? Or what if they were more like a parent? What if they were taller? They're their own person. More like an adult to me, taller. So I was walking around Portland, Oregon, and I was repelling the gaslighting of that I'm not an author. And I said, okay, well, if I was really an author, I would have like one fat book, not a bunch of little scraps of stories. I would just start at the beginning, start writing the story, and then get to the end. And it would be one big fat book. So I was like, well, what if I put these different elements together instead of trying to start a brand new book from scratch? What if I put all these elements together and see if I can salvage all of this work that I've already done to make these characters and put them into one story? And as it turns out, and this kind of hurt my feelings because it hurt my feelings because as I was wondering if these different characters and story pieces fit together, they all fit together so wondrously, and it hurt my feelings because I thought that I was not writing a story. I thought that the things that I was doing, I thought that I was not writing a story, so when I was thinking, I was thinking of a big fat book that I published, like, I'm a writer, I'm an author, I really am writing. And all these different characters, they all fit together, and they all fit together so well, and the story made so much sense. It was so upsetting. I was like, I thought I wasn't writing. I thought everyone around me was not a monster. I thought I was not a writer. That I go, hey, I'm a writer, hire me so that all of my life experience, and you go, no, you're not telling the truth. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not a writer. You're right, I'm not telling the truth. And then I found out that all of these different story pieces fit together so well, and it hurt my feelings. I was like, oh man, I'm sorry that I can't rob you right now. I'm sorry that I can't rob you right now. I'm sorry. The idea that I would work hard and have a job is an illusion. You mean like in the hospital? Like a fecal transplant because I'm so tortured that my stomach flora has been damaged and I need to go find somebody who has a genetically compatible stomach flora and have a fecal transplant? When she said eat, is that what she meant? When you said eat shit, do you mean that you're some sort of angel that lives outside of space-time so that you cannot cognate the difference between food and feces? I apologized to her that I could not rob her. Well, the idea that I'm supposed to go to work and have a job and all that stuff is mostly propagated by the stereotype of work hard, and it's not really true that I could go to a job and not immediately get sexually harassed and fired. This statement, you could go to work and not be immediately fired because some woman sexually harassed you and then went to the boss and told the boss that you sexually harassed her. That's not true. That statement is not true. I guess we're walking down into Hell's Kitchen to cook up some hell to give him hell. In this neighborhood, inspirations for Daredevil, Spider-Man, Punisher, Captain America.
We paid Robert several times. Whoever they work for all that.
It's just, there's so many magical nooks and crannies, so many places where you can be like, oh, here's a complicated reason why I should think that up is down. So many. It's just, I would say pick one, but I guess the point is to not pick any of them and to stay in this destructive reality where we interact with each other and slowly destroy ourselves so that we can pretend to be people and grow old, and I don't know what happens after that. I really don't believe in death anymore, to be honest with you. Yeah. Eesh. What is this? What is this? What is that? What is that? What is that? The knights who say "ni." So, the Mist franchise, it has this very Clinton-era good guy context. You know, where I guess nowadays it would be like Ramdani, Biden, good guy era vibe. And, you know, the idea is that those with higher resources are admired for showing up, exploring, being brave. They're admired for this, and they are admired for sharing, for providing what protection resources they have to their new associates, sharing their technology and their resources with the current location where they are from the previous location that they were. Now, in Star Trek, there is an inherent conflict that is called the Prime Directive. And the Prime Directive is that no civilization that has yet to discover warp technology shall be infringed upon. Their development shall not be enhanced or hindered. Their culture shall not be influenced, or their culture shall not be influenced or adjusted. I'm trying to think of a scenario in Star Trek where that wouldn't be applicable, where they would. And then there's all these kinds of stories where they're like, oh, we gotta adjust this, adjust that. we have to kind of determine how much is. Oh no, we're on the planet. I don't like that I have to walk. I don't like that I'm here. Like, oh, I'm a New Yorker taking a stroll through New York. Talking about what? Talking about what? How much that you would like to... Talking about what? Talking about what? How I can deceive children into believing that the way I got a job was by doing push-ups, instead of the truth that the way that I got a job was by walking through 17 different dimensions, including but not limited to a place literally called Hell's Kitchen.
If only. That guy,
Oh my goodness. Really? No, not really. Don't eat the baby! Very clean. Nice little bike. Yeah. Grace, I think I did the recording already, but so here's my ideas for Casper. Can we call them something else other than my ideas for Casper? You know, like, if you do math schoolwork, you don't call the answer your idea, right? What do you call it? You know, I wouldn't call it my proposal, because if I call it my proposal, then I imagine, if I call it my proposal, then doesn't that mean that by saying it out loud and by not being a schizophrenic secret keeper, that I'm disqualifying myself from participating in economics? Like, if I don't keep it a secret and put it deep in my subconscious and work for 15 years to be tortured like the Devil Wears Prada and turn myself into a inside-out snail where my actual personality is hidden somewhere deep in the multiple personality schizophrenic that I would need to be in order to be tortured that much so that I could have a job like a normal person. The compartmentalized madness of normal people. Because the people that have been in charge, they already damaged their children's mind in order to fracture their personality so that their children can function as multiple personality without this personality or that personality changing. So they've already been doing that for a long time. So the fractured mind, multiple personality situation is very, 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 very all over the place. Most people are multiple personality, not disorder. That's the thing. That's why they call it multiple personality disorder instead of just multiple personality. Because everybody has multiple personalities. Unless you're an asshole, you're the same person all the time. You treat the pastor at the church the same way that you treat the girl at the bar. Most people have one personality for their parents, one personality for their friends in their neighborhood, another personality for their friends outside of their neighborhood, and it would not surprise me if they don't remember that they actually have multiple personalities. That's very, very normal. It's very, 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 very normal, multiple personality. It's very common all over the place. that by diagnosing multiple personality as a disorder, that so many people were condemned to having the integrity of only one personality, which makes you grotesque to everyone around you. They call you an Indian. They say, "What are you, an Indian? You're rude." They say that your skin is red. They say your skin is red. Yeah. So someone I'm with you was people told me, "Oh, you really like to hear yourself talk." So I stopped talking, not altogether, but I started white knuckling, not speaking in conversations and just waiting for other people to speak.
That's what it mixed up.
And it was the uncanny valley of the dolls. I realized that I did love to hear myself speak because I hate so much being lied to. I despise so much being lied to. When I was a child, the teachers would communicate that they had something that they were waiting to reward me with if I did the schoolwork. But I inherently sensed a couple of different things. One, I inherently sensed that they did not have the thing to give it to me. I later found out that I would be building my own future by doing the schoolwork. That they would not be giving me an A+. They would not be giving me a career. They would know that you build it for yourself, that it's your own personal Yahweh distraction. That it's not a reward that they're waiting to give you. And the other thing that I inherently sensed was that if I went through the rigmarole of all of their tests and scholars, that I would not be the same person, that I would no longer care about the achievements or the pleasure of the person that I would become. That I would, I inherently sense that going through that would be so torturous that I don't have anything to do with the guy on the other side of that. This guy over here, nah. Jesus says, "He who loses his life will save his life." And I'm like, yeah, I did that already. Where is the life that I saved? Like, I'm in Portland, Oregon, I'm homeless, and I'm like, Jesus said that he would clothe me and give me a job. I'm like, where's my office? And no, not this thing, not that thing, an office. And an actual office. And an actual suit that you'll clothe me with. Okay, where's the actual suit? And it's, you're left with a real sense of accomplishment, like you really figured it out, like when you get to that point where you're like, okay, I did the thing, now you. When you go, okay, God, I did the thing, now you. You really feel accomplished. It's like, okay. To the point where you can't even tolerate, mentally, you can't really tolerate any criticisms that are formed in the shape of biblical reprimands, because you're such you're such an inadequately developed person because you didn't develop yourself. The Bible developed you. That the Bible is the most influential thing in your life, so the Bible cannot criticize you. The way that your parents can't complain about you because they made you. Okay, now what does that have to do with Mist? Now what does what have to do with Mist? How far back are we pulling? Who you are after great torment, who you are after tremendous pleasure. Well, that's the thing. Yes, tremendous pleasure can potentially have... Tremendous pleasure could potentially change who you are the same way that tremendous pain no longer is like, yeah. However, that would require William Shatner levels of I am my pain. And at a certain point, you are not your pain. I feel so bad for everything. Grace, in the multiverse, there are infinite numbers of possibilities. So, isn't it tragic how there is not a you in the entire multiverse that could possibly bring in a second person to be a part of your show? Isn't it tragic how in the entire multiverse that there is no such thing as you having a boyfriend? Isn't that sad? Whatever stupid, childish infatuation way of interpreting the massively complicated socioeconomic situation, not in the entire multiverse. Isn't that tragic? Isn't it tragic how the Friends Museum is on 23rd Street and Lexington instead of right across the street from the hospital that they always show?
It was home. It took me a while. Oh yeah.
But does that bull have antlers growing on its butt? I saw a tattoo of a bull with wings, but it looks like the behind the wings are antlers. Isn't it tragic how in the entire multiverse that there's no system to process between my entire environment trying to dissuade me from civil behavior so that I could... Isn't that tragic how even thinking about me being God kind of makes me want to puke, because like everything that we think of as God is like exemplary and above us and better than us, and I'm such a disciplined unto being average and relatable character. Isn't that tragic? Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. Wow. I didn't know that this neighborhood had even more of these cultural arcs where they have to like lift up the middle class above the street level because everyone's having a good time doing whatever they feel like with no accountability whatsoever. Everyone's Warholing. Andy Warhol says art is what you can get away with. You know, Grace, I would like to imagine that your contingent is global and not